In the year 2005, a boy named Arjun lived in a remote village in Andhra Pradesh. The local roads were dusty, the fields stretched for miles, and most residents sought quiet, stable lives. Arjun, however, spent his evenings looking up at passing airplanes, focused on a distant, singular desire: America. He possessed a highly detailed imagination. He could picture himself securing perfect academic marks and building a formidable athletic physique. But the moment those elaborate fantasies required physical exertion, his momentum stalled. He assumed top-tier exam scores and lucrative American IT job offers would somehow manifest automatically. He believed the sheer intensity of his dreaming would be enough to bring those outcomes into reality. This is a psychological trap known as outcome attachment. Living entirely inside the fantasy of a destination removes the friction of the actual journey. The brain receives the dopamine hit of the finish line without the body ever having to take a single step. This flowchart maps out exactly how that trap functions. Notice how a massive node representing intense desire bottlenecks into a tiny restricted node for action, which inevitably leads straight to failure. For Arjun, every exam season followed this exact path: high expectations met with poor results. We see the same pattern in his physical health. Resolutions to transform his body evaporated in weeks. Looking at our loop, that failure outcome doesn't trigger a change in strategy. Instead, it feeds directly into a new node: external blame. To protect his ego from the reality of his own inaction, he pointed outward. He blamed bad luck. He blamed the limitations of his rural village. As these external blame nodes multiply, they completely surround and freeze the action step. An overwhelming fixation on a glamorous result makes the unglamorous daily steps required to achieve it feel painfully slow. The gap between the desired dream and the required work simply becomes too wide to cross. One rainy evening, holding yet another disappointing test score, Arjun sat alone by a dark, silent lake near his home. Stripped of his usual excuses, he finally examined his own track record. His history of abandoned goals and broken promises served as clear diagnostic markers of his own missing effort. The next morning, he made a mechanical decision. He stopped looking at the sky and started looking at his desk. He reduced his horizon from a continent away down to a single chapter, a single workout, a single day. This is process orientation. He disconnected his emotional satisfaction from the distant finish line and tied his identity entirely to the execution of the work itself. This diagram illustrates the mechanics of that shift. A massive, intimidating target shatters into hundreds of isolated microunits. These represent individual blocks of daily effort that align into a climbable staircase. The climb is rarely smooth. He faced social isolation while his friends celebrated local festivals. He dealt with physical exhaustion and returning self-doubt. But the process continued forward regardless of how he felt on any given day. When he did encounter a failure, a low mark, or a botched interview, it no longer paralyzed him. He traded the failure as raw data, fed it into a correction loop, and resumed his trajectory at a steeper angle of improvement. Over several years, his academic metrics steadily climbed. His physical resilience deepened. The boy who only lived in his head hardened into a disciplined young man. He no longer worked because a specific reward was promised at the end. The exertion of effort had simply become his baseline daily duty. Arjun eventually graduated with top academic marks. Job interviews followed. Many companies ignored him, and some flatly rejected him, but he maintained his steady forward momentum. Then, on an unremarkable afternoon, an email arrived. It was an offer letter for an IT position he had targeted for years. The office location was the United States. The destination he had fantasized about on his childhood rooftop finally materialized, long after he had completely stopped obsessing over it. High-level achievement resists direct pursuit. It acts as a lagging indicator, a natural byproduct that accrues only after years of compounding high-quality execution. This aligns with a philosophical principle recorded thousands of years ago in the Bhagavad Gita: detailing the strict boundary between human agency and external destiny. Karmanye Vadhikaraste, Phaleshu Kadachana. You have the right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. From the airplane window, Arjun saw his own transformation into a capable individual as the primary victory, far exceeding the significance of the destination below. The most effective way to navigate ambition is a paradox. You surrender the final result entirely to chance and commit your absolute focus to the daily execution of the work.